Let's talk about some Star Wars Outlaws.
So IGN had an interview with a couple of Star Wars Outlaws developers from Ubisoft and one from Lucasfilm.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked about a whole bunch of stuff. Talking about, like, I believe this is the world we saw in that gameplay reveal way back in the summer.
Yeah.
Toshara, which is something they made from scratch with input from Lucasfilm. It talked about the main character, what's her name? Kay's speeder bike and how it's explicitly not a swoop, but you know that they made it so that like you could get around these huge open areas they're putting into the game, and
it's kind of like a Hogwarts Legacy. You can do you can like have your broom or your hippogriff, or you can do a thestral, I think, right? I think so.
Sounds real.
Yeah. Well, the dead things, the things you can't see unless you've seen death or whatever. Yeah.
Apparently they built a real one for Comic-Con, like a real scale model of the speeder bike.
Oh, I think I saw pictures of that. Yeah.
It's saying that you'll be able to like personalize and customize your speeder bike and your ship, which is always exciting.
Also, like kind of standard fare for open world games too.
Yeah.
They'll probably microtransaction the shit out of that.
So the Lucasfilm guy actually mentioned that whenever they build something in Star Wars, they have a formula where they want it to be like 80% familiar and then 20% like new alien weird stuff, which makes a lot of sense when you consider like a lot of Star Wars, I suppose. Just like the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy spend a lot of this time like filming on location in places that look and feel real, and then just have some fantastical elements added to them. Right. And like the prequel trilogy is a little bit less so because they were so fascinated with CG at the moment. But even then, things looked like it could be conceivably something that a human could encounter on Earth.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else? So they're talking about the time period being between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi being a time where there's a lot of opportunity for a scoundrel thief. Yeah.
Also, the storytelling that's kind of it's a part of the Star Wars era that isn't very developed. That like the exception being the Marvel Star Wars comics kind of take place in that time period, but otherwise, like I don't know if they thought that people didn't care about stuff in between those two movies or whatever.
Theory about that.
Okay.
When you come to Star Wars, the first thing you think about is like the Jedi and the Force and lightsabers. And there's a decided lack of all that stuff in this time period.
I think it's because most people really love Han Solo and he's frozen in carbonate.
Could also be, yeah. But that sort of adds another thought I have. So within the entire greater Star Wars universe, it's very easy to imagine that there are probably more like scoundrel type people running around than there ever were Jedi. And yet there's very little Star Wars media that actually pays attention to them.
Yeah. Well, because they're kind of hard. They're kind of hard heroes to have, especially when you consider like if you have a scoundrel character, you're going to be like, oh, it's the Han Solo character, which is like who wants another Han Solo character when you can just write Han Solo in, you know?
I suppose that's true.
Though when
you worked for Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah, that was too
like Dash Rendar was literally just Han Solo.
That really was like an intense, like barely legally distinct from Han Solo.
Yeah. Ubisoft talked about how they're working with Lucasfilm to try and get like existing characters and existing worlds into their game and have it all make sense and look authentic. And apparently you're going to have spend some quality time with Jabba the Hutt in the game.
Yeah, I was reading about that too.
Which might be fun.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and because we were talking last week about how like there's like a system where you like depending on who you fuck over, you can make certain people mad. You can like betray Jabba the Hutt, which is I think the closest we've gotten to this in video games was Battlefront 2015, where they had a level up system that were Hutt contracts, where like Jabba would give you a contract and you would fulfill it, and it just had achievements on it, like shove 10 thermal detonators up someone's ass and then you get like a gun or something. so it's like the closest we've had to Jabba being in a video game, which I think is kind of neat. That actually could be pretty cool. It's also reading about how they were talking about how they're like Star Wars Outlaws isn't going to be like an unmanageable 300-hour unfinishable game, right? And I saw that, and I was like, at first I was like, okay, that's so there are elements about open world games that are just kind of like, this is in every open world game, and it just feels like busy work. And at the same time, that the line that they gave just sounded like this isn't going to be as long as you think it is, so we're going to find a way to spin that, and so that it doesn't seem too short. So I'm hoping that they actually find a good medium there, that it doesn't feel like a really short game, but also like in Batman Arkham Origins, the or any of the Batman games, like collecting Riddler trophies, like in Arkham Knight, there were like 300 something Riddler trophies to collect, and it was like, and I did it. Why the fuck did I do it? I don't know. Because
you got to be Batman for slightly longer.
Yeah, but really, it's like, this is just busy work. Like, this is just stupid bullshit. So
what open world games do at their very best is they provide a lot of different ways to go between points and a lot of fun things to just stumble upon.
Yeah.
Like if you have a quest that takes you from point A to point B, there are like multiple different routes to get there. And I might take one route and encounter one situation. You might go another and find something else. And we played the same game. We did the same mission, but we encountered all these different things on the way just based on which direction we went to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm always very wary about open world games because I can't remember exactly what game it was, but like some open world game did really well, and then after that, everyone was making games. Like everyone had a game that was open world, and a lot of them just shouldn't have been. Like they weren't like big enough to actually be open world games, and it's just kind of like, oh, Jesus Christ.
They talked a little bit about the ship combat and how it's going to be a little bit more arcadey rather than the simulationist, which is fine.
Yeah,
I'm okay with
right. I love space simulators. I spend a lot of time playing Elite Dangerous. I just fucking love that. However, that is one of the reasons why not a lot of people got into Star Wars Squadrons, because that is kind of like a legit flight simulator. And it's the learning curve is pretty steep. It's not very approachable by players, and as a result, on day one, there weren't a lot of people playing multiplayer in Star Wars Squadrons, which kind of sucked. I would have invested more time in it if it had a more active multiplayer thing. And I kind of guess it would be like an arcade ship combat system based on how it looked in the gameplay trailer, because it looks just like Starfighter Assault from Battlefront 2. Yeah. So it's down to like the icons on the side that showed you like how much your thrust is and shit. So I'm sure that they probably cannibalized something from because I think Respawn did the flight side of Battlefront. So they probably took something out of that.
Well, they did say, Ubisoft, that they did everything in-house. They weren't looking at what anyone else was doing. So you can believe that as much as you want.
I don't know if I believe that.
They also specifically seem to shoot down any possibility that Kay is going to end up being a Jedi or get a lightsaber, because that's the first thing anyone thinks whenever a Star Wars game comes up. Like, can you be a Jedi?
Yeah, I don't think I ever really thought that was a realistic expectation.
I didn't either, but some people must have, and they just basically say no. Like if she got a lightsaber, she would just try to sell it.
Yeah.
Which makes sense with
would try to use it and kill herself, probably, because they're very dangerous.
Seems a little smarter than that. So they close out the interview. The guy from IGN asks, "Do you have a message for fans who have been negative about Outlaws having a woman as a protagonist?" And unfortunately, the Ubisoft guy kind of gave kind of a nothing answer, saying, we're really proud of the story we've crafting. The actress playing Kay is doing a great job, and we think you're all going to love it. When he really should have said, if you have a problem with a female protagonist, that says more about you than it does about the game. Yeah. Like, get the fuck over yourselves.
Yeah. I agree with that.
But I mean, you kind of have to give corporate speak in these interviews.
Right. You don't want
to offend the bigots.
Yeah. You don't want Star Wars Theory making a video about how the game designer, give a slap in the face. Yeah. Like, blah, blah, blah. Right. And it's a big slap in the face to fans and all that other bullshit. Yeah.